So today I am going to model my resource, which is HyperDocs, and how I use this tool for colleagues. I'm also going to show you how you can collaboratively use this with students and how you use this tool to promote and empower student learning. So first of all, how I use this resource tool for colleagues is I actually did this PD for my school on HyperDocs, and I wanted to show them the value of using HyperDocs in the classroom. And of course, I thought the best way to actually show that was to actually use a HyperDoc as the PD tool. And by going through using this HyperDoc, I wanted them to see how the HyperDoc put the learning in their hands, how engaging it was, and it also then gave them a resource that they could go back at and look at, because you know how those PD sessions are, it can be overwhelming. And then I was able to actually look at the feedback that they gave me through the form. And that let me know, okay, there's teachers that were interested in it. And so then I could do follow up with those teachers. There were some that were actually already using it and had questions. So that was valuable feedback for me. So this was the HyperDoc that I used. And of course, I started off giving them the directions, engage them, kind of gave them a little pre-work where they had to watch this video, and then on this Google Doc had to actually give me some feedback on what their thoughts were, which was kind of interesting. I'll kind of show you some of the things that they said. And this, for most of them, this was something new they hadn't seen before. So, looks interesting, very informative. They already see, hey, it kept me interested. It was engaging. Again, engagement in here, which was great. And I loved this answer. I'm always interested in students working more than me. So that's the beautiful thing about HyperDocs. It puts that learning in the students' hands. So I'm going to kind of go into now how would I collaboratively use this tool then with students. So obviously it can be very collaborative, but when you have these HyperDocs, you can't just give the student the HyperDoc without teacher guidance. You as a teacher need to teach them how to use the HyperDoc. Giving behavior expectations while they're working in group is important, and teaching them how to go through the HyperDocs. And HyperDocs can be set up in so many different ways, so it's important to be clear on what you expect for them. So for example, I actually did this HyperDoc here, grammar lesson, and for this one, I actually went in and modeled for the teacher because she'd never seen anything like this. So I kind of had to teach the kids, okay, this is what a HyperDoc is, this is what it looks like, this is what I expect out of you as far as behavior, and kind of modeled with them what that would look like. And I also talked with them about, as they did collaborate on these different slides, they can't just put I don't know in an answer. I gave them examples and non-examples of things that would be acceptable to put in here, because we do want that meaningful feedback, because that's what's going to help the teacher guide their lesson and reteach if needed. Then I had this other class that then had this other HyperDoc here. This is actually one that they're going to use through the entire novel. And so they had a little kind of a flipped classroom with this one, because they were able to click here and had to do some activities to learn a little bit more about the author and dog sledding, to give them that kind of that background before they actually went into the rest of this HyperDoc. And this is a really great HyperDoc. There's lots of links within here that give activities. Then the teacher can kind of do some formative assessment as she's going through the entire novel with the students, to kind of make sure that they're on the right track and learning, getting all these learning goals that they need to have. And then the last thing is how to use this resource to promote and empower student learning. Well, I love HyperDocs because it does meet so many of those ISTE standards. It empowers students to set their own goals and then meet those goals. Students, using that technology, you're getting feedback from them that helps to improve their learning. HyperDocs allows them to be a global collaborator as they use those digital tools to work with peers towards a common goal in their learning. It helps them to become innovative designers and creative communicators using digital resources to show what they have learned. As students work through a HyperDoc, they can demonstrate being good digital citizens by engaging in positive interactions with their peers. So many of those ISTE standards can be met through this. I think the graphic at the top of this PD says it all, and that's why I love this when I showed it to the teachers. And I'll just read through a couple of things here. It's transformative digital lesson delivery that shift the focus from the teacher-led lecture, which we see so much, to a student-driven inquiry-based learning through exploration. It's putting that learning in their hand. And then I love this, that they're engaged, they're exploring, they're explaining, they're reflecting, they're sharing, they're applying. This is all part of being a 21st century learner. Thank you for listening.